Just an observation, actually, just before we get started. I'm talking to a number of you over lunch and a little bit earlier, and about marketing, about Simon's presentation earlier, which I thought was absolutely phenomenal, and I know a number of other people did as well. And Simon made the observation to just do something, anything, rather than what a lot of MSPs do, which is absolutely nothing at all. Now, I recall having a conversation with a friend of mine that some of you might know, Carl Palachuk, who is, in my opinion, the world's top MSP blogger. How many people read Carl's blog in the room here? There you go, a couple. Free piece of advice for you. Smallbizthoughts.com, go and check that out. Wonderful resource. But Carl was actually telling me he was sat in his office when he ran an MSP years ago, one Friday afternoon, and he had a phone call, and it was a sales phone call. And it was actually a young lad from one of his nearest competitors. Carl, being a sly sort, didn't actually let on that the lad hadn't vetted his mailing list properly and called one of the competitors. And he said he let this kid go over one of the worst sales pitches ever. He went through and eventually, put him out of his misery and said to him, hey, just to let you know, I'll never buy off you because I'm a competitor. Put the phone down, feeling rather pleased with himself. And Carl then said he had the dawning realisation that however bad that lad's pitch to him had been, the kid had probably been there and made hundreds, if not 1,000 phone calls that week, and Carl had made 0 phone calls. Who's going to end up with more business? So, fantastic presentation, Simon, and do something, I think I'll take away from that. But I'm here today to talk about the 3 valuable pieces of advice, 3 key steps towards becoming a successful managed service provider. You see, on a day-to-day basis, I work with the owners of IT businesses, people who are exactly like you. And I've made an observation. I've come to a conclusion after watching them over a number of years that there's 3 things that the most successful MSPs do consistently. And so today I'm going to share with you those 3 key pieces of advice, 3 practical tips that you can take away to the office at the end of today, implement within your business, and essentially make more money doing it. Go on the road to becoming a successful managed service provider. Now, I set aside time for questions at the end of our presentation. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to make notes as you go along. And I set time aside for presentations there. I'll be happy to answer your questions. I'll also be around afterwards having a go on the Scalable, which I've not had a go on yet. But I should say I'm the undisputed champion on the football table at the moment. So I'm looking for anybody who feels like they could take me down at that. If there's one thing, though, that I would like you to take away from today, it's this. Consider going away and building the business that your clients want to have. Build the business that your clients want to have. If you build that type of business, you will attract the right type of clients. You'll attract people who value your experience, who are fun to work with, people who value your time, and people who will pay for that accordingly. So the one thing I'd like you to take away from today, build the business that your clients would like to have. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'm a geek, no 2 ways about it. I wouldn't suggest that anybody in the room is a geek as well. But I'm a geek, and so when I ran my MSP business, I prided myself on the fact that I gave technical service, very good technical service. I was damn good at it. I was a very good geek. But I had the dawning realisation after a couple of years that the people who were hiring me, the people who I really enjoyed work with, the people who paid me the best, didn't necessarily hire me because I was a fantastic technical person. Why did they hire me? Well, I think they hired me because I was organised. Does this ring a bell to anybody? Does anybody have clients who have got desks like this? Maybe. Nobody in the room has got a desk like that back at the office. So when I say that people were hiring me because I was organised and not necessarily because I was a great technician, I think it was built on a basis of really sound and strong business processes that I'd built up. So let me give you an example. Business processes, what does that actually mean? For me, it meant documentation. It meant putting together really strong documentation about a client's business. Now, the technician in me is really interested in documenting IP addresses, firewall port forwarding, and so on and so forth. All the things that we know will make our job easier on a day-to-day basis. But I was a little bit OCD about documentation, with my clients' documentation. I was a little bit obsessive around it. And so we actually, in our MSP business, documented lots of things that perhaps some of us in the room might feel falls outside the normal remit of IT. Let me give you one example. A client phoned us the one time in a bit of a flap and saying the air conditioning unit in the comms room is leaking. Some of you might have experienced that. But the lady on the other end of the phone at the client was in a terrible flap because she hadn't got a clue who she would turn to about the air conditioning. She didn't know who had installed the air conditioning in the first place. She didn't even know when it was installed. In fact, nobody in the business did. But when we first took that client on, as I said, we were a bit obsessive about it. We went around the business and we highlighted all of these things, such as the air conditioning, such as the IP cameras, and so on and so forth. We found out who we would speak to if something went wrong there, what the serial numbers were, what the warranty was, so on and so forth. So when that lady phoned us up in a bit of a flap saying, the comms room's filling up with water, what do we do? Not necessarily an IT issue, but we said, no worries, we can deal with that. We phoned up the air conditioning company who actually installed it in the first place. They sent an engineer out and they resolved the problem in absolutely no time at all. Now, who do you think got the credit for that? The air conditioning company, a little bit, true, but mostly us as the MSP who's providing the service to them. Now, that's not necessarily technical, is it? Again, going back to what I said, not necessarily the most technical, it's not necessarily because we were the best at technical, but we were organised. We did have good documentation. So business processes, very important. Documentation is important. What else comprises business processes? I would suggest checklists provide business processes. Now, I do a lot of flying, both for pleasure and for travel. I've got a flight coming up in a couple of weeks' time, a short haul from London to Newcastle. I've got a flight next week to Dubai. Short haul or long haul, whenever I get on the plane, I know that it's going to have a qualified pilot on board. The airlines have hired a qualified pilot. They wouldn't let anybody fly the plane unless they're qualified to do it. Yet I also know from a fact, from friends who work in the airline industry, that before these pilots have to take off, they have to go through a stringent set of checklists, checking this, that and the other. Now, it isn't because they don't know what they're doing, but we're all human, aren't we? We can't all keep all of that information, and there's times when we're under pressure or when things are going on that we need a checklist there to go through. And I'd say a checklist for me within my managed service business brought consistency. It brought consistency to the service that we provided to customers. We had checklists for things as simple as installing a PC, as rolling a PC out there. We all know how to install a PC, how to remove the bloatware, and so on and so forth. But doing it consistently, perhaps when you're at a client site and there's a client tapping on your shoulder saying, "Why are you here? Can you just have a look at this?" You get distracted. Things happen. Hopefully not things like that. But things do happen that, that distract you from what's going on. So building checklists, rolling out standardisation on firewalls, on the ports that needed opening. We had checklists. And immediately we reduced the number of support calls that we had, say for instance with a firewall, with a client phoning us up and saying, email's not working. Yeah, meant to open port 25 and forward it on there. Didn't really get around to do it because I went off and made a cup of tea at that point or whatever. We've all been there and it's all incredibly embarrassing when it happens. But checklists provide that consistency. I think when it comes to consistency, one analogy I would make is none of us go and eat burgers at McDonald's. Well, first of all, nobody in the room eats burgers at McDonald's. I know you don't. Certainly not me. With my Herculean physique, I never eat burgers at McDonald's. But none of us go to McDonald's because they serve the best burgers, do we? But we do go there because we know what we're going to expect. Now, the service is probably average, but it's consistently average, isn't it? So we go along to McDonald's because we know what we're going to get because they provide a consistent service. Because McDonald's essentially is a business built off the back of huge amounts of checklists. Everybody knows what they're doing, they check it off, and everything is consistently delivered. So when it comes to focusing on strong business processes, which I would say is the first step towards building a great MSP, documentation is important, checklists provide consistency. Make sense? The second piece of advice I'd give about growing an MSP that's successful is make the complex simple. Now, Charles Mingus here is a very famous jazz musician. He says, making the simple complicated is commonplace, making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's creativity. Now, I think it's fair to say that within the IT industry, we have a reputation for making the simple awfully complicated, going off in the other direction. Indeed, I've already shared with you that I'm a geek, that I'm a technician, that I've been sitting here absolutely thrilled with some of the presentations today. I miss getting my hands dirty with the mail server installation, for instance. Maybe I'm the only one. But we do have a tendency to make things complicated. And yet, when we're speaking to clients, they want us to make it incredibly simple for them. They want us to take complex ideas and make it simple. And one of the best ways of making complex ideas simple is not to focus on the features that you're going to be providing to somebody. It's to focus entirely on the benefits. What do I mean by that? Well, if a client approaches you and they say, we need a new server. They may need a new server, that's for sure, but what's the real reason they need a new server? So if you dig into it, they may say, oh, well, we need to access mail remotely and it goes slowly and so on and so forth. So your initial instinct as a technician is to run away and put together a great proposal that shares the latest and greatest email server that's got all these different features. Client isn't really interested in that. What they're really interested in, when it all boils down to it, is how you're going to serve their needs and essentially how to save them money or to make them money. Now, I want you to remember that one. Clients are not interested in features. We're interested in features as people who work in the IT industry. Clients are interested in benefits, how you can save them money or how you can make them money. So I challenge you to go away and any time that you have any interaction with a client whatsoever, think about how you can boil it down and make it as simple as possible for them. How you can focus on benefits, not features. And when I say any interaction, I really do mean any interaction. So the next time you're at a business networking event, talk to people about how you save them money or make them money. Go away and have a look at your website. Does it say you're the best IT company in Surrey, in Birmingham, in wherever? Clients don't really care about that. Talk about how you're going to save them money or make them money. Social media, your marketing, everything that you put out there, make it all about them. Make it all about focusing on the benefits that you bring to them, how you save them money or how you make them money. So I think focusing on benefits is hugely important in making the complex simple. Now, when I talk about money or when I talk about the benefits, have any of you ever spoken to clients and it's been as plain as the nose on your face that they need a new solution within their business, that they need something that's going to save them money, that's going to save them time, that's going to save them effort. And so you put forward a great proposal and they come back and they say, we're going to muddle along as we are. Has anybody ever had that? A few people in the room there, and a few who don't want to admit to it. So when it comes down to it, I think my advice for that situation, again, would be to make it absolutely simple. Reduce the complexity even further. So we're already focusing on the benefits, we're focusing on how we can save them money, but also focus on a business case, talk in the language that these business owners understand. So they might look at you perhaps with glazed eyes when you start to talk about why they need a new mail server and how it's going to do this, that and the other to them. But realistically, what they need is somebody to boil it down even further still. And by that I mean put together a business case, numbers. So going to them and saying, for instance, okay, instead of saying we want you to spend this much on a new mail solution, why not go back to them and say, the mail solution that we're going to put in is going to cost this much and it's going to save you this much over the next 3 years. If you stay as you are, if you leave things as they are, you'll save this money on the new mail server, but it's going to cost you this amount of money over the next 3 years. Do the mathematics for them. Highlight it really simple. And then they look at it and they say, oh, only an idiot wouldn't go for option number 1 and fit a new mail server there if I'm going to save this amount of money over the next few years. Common sense, right? Yet why do so few of us in the IT industry do that? Why do so few of us actually boil it down and make the complex as simple as possible for them? This is the language that our clients speak in. This is the language that we need to speak to them in as well. So step number 2 of making the complex simple is to focus on business benefits, to focus on a business case, and that boils down to pounds and pence, how much you're actually going to save or you're going to make them. And step number 3 of making the complex simple is by giving them examples, giving them demonstrations. Simon talked about it earlier on in his presentation when he was mentioning case studies and things of that nature. Demonstrating to people how you can help them is a lot more powerful than just telling them directly, hey, Mr. Customer, I can help you with a new mail server. Well, why? If you put a story out there about how you've helped other people who are just like your clients, the clients come to you. They knock on your door. They say, we're a bit like that client that you were talking about in the video or in the case study or on your social media or in that presentation I saw you give at the business breakfast the other day. We're a little bit like that. And actually, we've got the same problems as the people you mentioned in there. Would you come in and have a conversation with us about it as well? Let me give you one example that's very pertinent to what I do, my business now. So after selling my MSP business, I now work with the owners of IT businesses to help them free up their time, to concentrate on what's important, and essentially to make more money. It's not a bad little elevator pitch, is it? So it gives you an idea of what I talk about. But if I told you that one of my clients shared with me their year-end accounts the other day, and that based on the work that we've done together over the last year, that their turnover was up 1,002%, grabs your attention a lot quicker, doesn't it? So I would challenge you to go back to your business and look at the type of stories that you're sharing with people. Remember everything I've said up until this point. Business owners traditionally or typically are only interested in the bottom line, in what you can save or make them. So make the stories that you share with other people along the same sort of lines. So step 2 to making the complex simple is use stories. Let's move on to the third key element that I observed in clients in MSPs who have gone on to be very, very successful in building the business that your clients want to have. And it's partnerships. So if anything, any of the bits and pieces I've spoken to you about today sound great in theory, but you're thinking, oh, hell, Rick, I've got to go back and I've got to do proposals, I've got to do this, I've got to do installations, I've got to do all these sorts of things. It's a bit much, isn't it? I know because I've been there. I used to run an MSP. I used to have a whole lot more hair than I've got at the moment as well. I know how much is on your plate. So the third big piece of advice I would give you is around partnerships. And the first part of that is don't try and do this alone. Don't try and do this alone. Collaborate with your peers. Collaborate with the people around you. You've got a fantastic opportunity here today to wander around the room, to introduce yourself to other people, and to understand what people within the Zen partner community do. All of you are IT companies, but not all of you do the same things. There's going to be people in the room here today who are specialists in voice over IP. There's going to be people who are specialists at MDemon. There's going to be people who are specialists at broadband. There's going to be people who are specialists at Wi-Fi. All of these various things. You don't need to become specialists within your business at everything that your clients need. It might be nice to think that you could do that, but I can tell you from experience that you can't. Don't do it alone. Buddy up, create what the Americans would call strategic partnerships with other businesses who can deliver these type of services. Now, again, going back to one of the first stories I shared with you when we sorted out the air conditioner problem for one of our clients. Who got the credit for that? Well, the air conditioning company a little bit, but mostly us, because we were the ones who facilitated that, who made that whole mess go away for them. So if you're worried for 1 minute that you're going to buddy up with a peer and they're going to come in and take the business away or you know, it's going to go wrong, I can tell you, no, that's not the way it works. If you build relationships with peers who have got specialities, you're the one that's going to end up with the credit with your client for services that they deliver on your behalf to the client as well. you can make it profitable, you can expand the range of services that you offer, and your clients are going to think you're absolute superstars for doing these things. So building partnerships up with your peers is hugely important, and you've got an opportunity here today over Scale Electric and over a few beers later. Just go and speak to 3 people and ask them, what does your IT company do that other IT companies perhaps don't do? Could it be VoIP? Could it be Wi-Fi? Find out. Take business cards with you. Write on the back of the business card, this person's a Wi-Fi specialist. Connect up with them afterwards. Go away, maintain that relationship. The next time you're speaking to your client, I guarantee that somebody that you've met today will spring to mind as being a great introduction for them, as being a piece of work that you can go out and offer to them. So the third part of building the business that your clients would like to have is by creating partnerships and partnerships with peers. Now, the second part, I would say, is very, very applicable today, and that's the partnerships that you've got with vendors. Now, traditionally, the vendor managed service provider relationship, or the vendor IT solution provider relationship, is not dissimilar to a tug of war. Now, the vendors in the room here today are not going to share it in that way. They certainly don't want to offend you, but it's not untraditional, or it's not uncommon for you as IT solution providers to expect the sky, the earth, and everything that's on it from your vendors with very little in return. So again, the vendors wouldn't say this, but they're probably sick to death of hearing, can I have that for free? Can I have an NFR? What free training do you provide? And so on and so forth. But when it comes to building it from, instead of a tug of war where you're trying to get what you can off the vendors, and the vendors are just saying, hey, we just want you to go out and sell our products, try flipping that on the head. Try going to your vendors, and I challenge you to do this today. It might feel a bit awkward, but I challenge you to go and do it. Walk up to one of the vendors who are here today and say, hey, I've been using your product for a while. What would it take for us to become your favourite partner? What would it take for us to become your favourite partner? They'll be blown away, because nobody ever asks them, what can I do for you? Partners only ever come up to it realistically and say, gimme, gimme, gimme. So you're immediately going to make yourself exceptional. You're immediately going to make yourself stand out from the pack by doing that. Put yourself in it, make it, instead of a tug of war, make it into a partnership. So let me give you some examples. What can you do to make life easier for the vendors, to help the vendors to become more successful, and in turn to help you to become more successful? Well, if the vendors do provide training, commit to certifying your staff up on their training courses. Commit to getting all of your internal staff trained up on a specific product. I would challenge you to go to your vendor account managers and say, I hope you don't mind me asking, but how are you compensated? Now, immediately they'll think, well, you know, are you trying to headhunt me, or are you trying to poach me? But what you're actually asking them is, how can I help you to make money? Now, interestingly, when I bring this point up with a lot of managed service providers, one of the first things they say at this stage is, oh, well, vendors are only, and distributors are only really interested in numbers, box shifting. I'm too small to be noticed. It's been my experience speaking to vendors and distributors that there's a whole lot more that goes into the things that they're measured on, the things that they're targeted on. We've already talked about training. Another one could be partner acquisition. So if you speak to your vendor account manager and they say, well, actually, I'm personally bonused on every new partner I bring on board, you can say, no problem at all. I'm going along to my local user group meeting next week, and I'm going to tell everyone there how good your product is, and I'm going to give them your details. Would that be okay? Yeah. Why not offer to go to your vendors and create a case study with them? If you've got examples of how you've helped your clients save or make money, go to your vendors and say, hey, I think I've got a good story here. Would you like to come in on us? Perhaps create a little bit of PR around it? It's so rare for vendors to have partners approach them to ask these things. It's going to blow their mind, and you're instantly going to become one of their favourite partners, regardless of how many boxes you shift, regardless of how many licenses you sell. And that when it comes down to it, you're going to leave an indelible impression in their mind, and the next time some wonderful opportunity comes along for them, maybe a referral, maybe a PR opportunity, maybe even to just come in and have a look at the latest beta software, who do you think they're going to think of? One of the thousands of partners they've got, or the partner is always making phone calls to them saying, hey, how can I help you this week? So the third part of building the managed service provider business that is successful, the third part of building the business that your clients want to have is partnerships. Partnerships with your peers and partnerships with your vendors.